You were working behind the wheel, just doing your job, and now you're hurt. And before you've even had time to process the injury, you're probably told something like this: you're a 1099, you're not an employee, workers' comp doesn't apply to you. If you were injured while driving truck in Minnesota, that moment matters more than most drivers realize, because what the company tells you does not always decide your rights. I'm a truck accident lawyer practicing in Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Iowa. I've been handling serious injury cases for over 20 years. I also hold a Class A CDL. I've driven. I understand the rules. I understand the difficulties of sharing the road with cars, bikes, and other drivers who aren't as careful as you are. And I've seen trucking companies use job titles to avoid responsibility after a driver gets hurt. Let's talk about how Minnesota actually looks at this. In Minnesota, workers' compensation eligibility is based heavily on control. Not just what's written in a contract, if you even have a contract. Not just whether you get a W-2 or a 1099. It's control. Who controls your work? Who controls the truck? Who controls your schedule? Who controls how the job gets done? That's the framework. Now let's walk through the three categories most truck drivers fall into. First, employee drivers. If you're a W-2 driver, driving a company truck or equipment they tightly control, and dispatch controls your routes, loads, and schedule, you are usually covered by Minnesota workers' compensation. You may also be covered by another state's workers' compensation benefits, depending on where you're from and where your company is from. That coverage typically includes medical care, wage replacement while you're off of work, and benefits if you're left with permanent restrictions. But even then, companies still fight these claims. They argue the injury wasn't work-related. They push you back to work too soon. They try to control medical treatment. Workers' compensation exists to protect employee drivers, but that doesn't mean it's automatic or easy. Second, so-called independent contractors. This is where a lot of truck drivers get misled. You may be paid on a 1099. You may be told that you are your own business. But that label alone does not control workers' comp eligibility in Minnesota. If you haul primarily for one carrier, if they control the loads you take, if they control delivery deadlines, if you can't freely send a substitute driver or turn down a load, and if you depend on that carrier for your income, there's a real chance you are misclassified. And misclassified drivers in Minnesota may still qualify for workers' compensation benefits. This is one of the most common issues I see after a serious trucking injury. Drivers accept the company's answer without questioning, and they leave benefits on the table that could support their family while they recover. The third category is owner-operators. If you own your truck, pay your own expenses, and truly operate independently, you may not be automatically covered by Minnesota workers' comp. Some owner-operators opt into coverage. Others rely on occupational accident policies. Those policies are not the same as workers' comp, and they often leave gaps. But here's the key point. No workers' comp does not mean no case. If a four-wheeler caused your crash, if another truck made a bad move, if a shipper, broker, or maintenance provider played a role, or if equipment failed, you may still have a strong third-party claim. What injured Minnesota truck drivers get wrong most often is assuming the company's answer is final. It's not. They also miss deadlines, rely on HR for legal advice, or fail to preserve contracts and dispatch records. One wrong assumption can cost you years of income. If you were injured while driving truck in Minnesota, whether you're an employee, a so-called independent contractor, or an owner-operator, don't assume you're out of options. Get your classification reviewed. Get clear answers and protect your health, your income, and your future before the insurance companies decide it for you. Just go to the link in the description if you'd like to reach out to me or get more information on trucking injuries.